Forget aprons and stereotypes. Today's stay-at-home moms are changing the rules. From homegrown meals to homeschool and handcrafted goods, they're creating a movement that mixes purpose, passion, and sustainability. Shannon Hayes is the author of Radical Homemakers: Reclaiming Domesticity from a Consumer Culture. Let's welcome author Shannon Hayes. Shannon, thanks for joining us this morning.
Thanks for making time for me.
Yes, of course. And I mean, Shannon, in your book, Radical Homemakers, we learned that you happen to have a PhD from Cornell. So what made you decide to pursue a life as a radical homemaker rather than the professional career you were trained for?
You know, at the core, I think it was a heart-centered decision that turned into a hearth-centered decision. I was raised in the northern foothills of the Appalachian Mountains, and while I was educated to become a college professor, I was very, very influenced by northern Appalachian mountain culture. My surrogate grandparents, who I was with just about every day, lived on just a few $1,000s per year. And as I was completing my education and preparing to enter into the workforce, I was quite distraught about having to leave my local farming community. I was very much in love with my way of life. And that led me to push pencil to paper and start considering what was really at stake if I left, what was to gain as well. And when I did the numbers, I actually found that there was quite a lot of justification for me to return to my agrarian life because I realized that the skills I learned from my Appalachian neighbors of how to cook, how to preserve food, how to live a life tied to the
Yeah.
land would actually offset my need for money.
And for those of us who are hearing this term for the first time, Shannon, can you tell us what exactly it means to be a radical homemaker?
Sure. I actually traveled the country interviewing families who were able to live on a single income or less because someone was at home. And when I interviewed them, I discovered that we all kind of lived by four primary tenets, which was ecological sustainability, a concern for social justice, and a deep love of family and community. And those four pillars directed all of our decisions in how we went about our days, our lives, and our careers.
And do you feel like this has been an economically viable choice for you?
You know, it really, really has. We've done very, very well. The economy has gone through all kinds of ups and downs since we made this choice about 30 years ago.
Yeah.
And we've just held strong. We've been able to gain in our overall wealth and our comfort and our well being. So, yes, I think it's been worth it.
And I mean, what does a typical day look like for you at this stage in your life? Kind of paint a picture for our viewers.
Well, the caveat being at this stage of life, I did homeschool my daughters. So, right about now, I would have been sitting at the kitchen table with them a few years ago. But now they're actually both in school full time and they're working the farm. So, my days are involved with, since I'm not working with my children now full time,
Yeah.
I'm doing farm work. I'm managing the books for the farm and I'm writing. I cook a lot. And I actually have a lot of time to do the things I love, which is spend a lot of time out in the woods and playing music. I play bari sax in a jazz band,
Oh, wow.
and I practice
Okay.
that.
I love
Yeah.
that. Okay, you're doing it all. I mean, and is this how it looked when you had young children at home? Was this kind of what you envisioned down the line?
I didn't know how peaceful it would be, to be honest. But I had little ones at home. It was pretty chaotic. I had a very, very messy house. We had a lot of creative living going on.
Yeah.
My kids were always into animals and livestock. That livestock was coming indoors. We had lots of educational moments homeschooling with their creative energy. So, but there still was a lot of music and joy in our at all times. It was just looked a little bit messier than it does
Yeah,
now.
I think parents can understand that too. How would you say being a radical homemaker differs from being a traditional wife?
Yeah. Balance of power. That's the key. Um, Everybody shares responsibilities in our home. My husband carries just as much of the workload around the house as I do. When I traveled across the country, I interviewed a lot of people, and I learned when it could go very bad. And when people are subjugated, when people are servants to each other, when people are dominated, that's a problem. And that sets us up for what Betty Friedan wrote about all those years ago about housewife syndrome. You know, if someone's doing all the work in the house and they have no power and no autonomy, that's a problem. So
Yeah.
in radical homemaking, we balance that power among all the adults in the household.
Shannon, thanks so much for teaching us about radical homemaking. I'm going to let our viewers know where they can go for more information. You can find out more by heading to sapbushfarmstore.com.